Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to episode 6 of Real-Time Design with Toby Schnaars. And in this season 1, what we're going to be doing is going through and creating a foot-powered or a foot-pedaled slide advancer for PowerPoint by retrofitting this wireless 10 key into place. So now we get to the video where we're going to be actually drawing up this 10 key in SolidWorks. Now, all the videos up to this point have been relatively short. And I expect this one's going to be a little bit longer, or maybe a lot longer, because I'm going to go through kind of start to finish my thought process and how I use the software to create this 10 key in the SolidWorks software. So if you're like me, that's fine, because this is the good stuff. This is what you really wanted to see. You're going to get a chance to kind of see inside the mind of a SolidWorks expert and how I think through this project and how I would take a model like this, an existing model, and turn it into a SolidWorks model. So that's about all I have to say. Strap in. I'm going to be doing this live. I don't know how long it's going to take because I haven't modeled this thing yet. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so here we are inside the SolidWorks software, and I've got Windows Explorer open as well. And I just wanted to show that one of the tricks that we use when we're working with the SolidWorks software is we'll take pictures of a physical object and then bring those pictures into SolidWorks. So nothing too fancy about these pictures, you know, really just simple pictures from a cell phone. That typically will do the job. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to start a new part here in millimeters, and I'm going to go top plane, begin a sketch. I'm going to sketch a rectangle here, and I'm going to give that rectangle the dimensions that we talked about earlier, 132 by 88. And then I'm going to exit that sketch, and I'm going to rename that sketch something like top layout. And then I'm going to go to the top plane again, begin a sketch, and I'm going to use the command tools, sketch picture. And I'm going to bring in that picture of the front or the top of the 10 key. Now, when you bring in an image in SolidWorks, if you use this tool here, the little blue arrow with the magenta arrow and the magenta dot at the one side, you can drop that on one side of the 10 key, drag this arrow over to the other side, let go of your mouse, and then SolidWorks will say, what is that distance supposed to be? So I'm going to say that that distance is supposed to be 88 millimeters, and then SolidWorks resizes the image for me. Now I need to make some final, fine-tuning adjustments here, so I need to grab this corner and drag it. But when I do, it says I can't do that because the scale line is in control. So I'm going to uncheck this option here that says Enable Scale Tool, and that's going to let me resize this to make some, final adjustments, kind of some fine-tuning here. So for example, the width is a little bit skewed because of the perspective that I got when I took the picture. Ideally, you don't have any perspective when you take the picture, but if you end up with a little bit, it's okay. I also might want to slightly change the angle of this picture just to kind of even it out, so maybe like negative 0.7 here. And again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this up as I go through it. And now that I feel like the width looks pretty good for me to capture this radius down in the corner, I need to adjust the height of this thing. So I'm going to uncheck the option that says Lock Aspect Ratio, and then I'm going to take this point here and just drag it up a little bit. There we go. That's fitting pretty good. It's not perfect. It's not going to be, we're 3D printing this thing, so we want it to be as close as possible, but it's never going to be perfect when you're working from an image. That's okay. We're going to use kind of a combination of an image and taking some measurements. So last thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to adjust the transparency of this. Usually I go to about 0.6 for my transparency. That lets me see enough of the picture, but I can still see through it, and more importantly, select through it if I need to. And I'm going to exit that sketch, and I'm going to call that top or image dash top. Makes it really easy for me to just go over here to the tree, hide the image when I don't want to see it, go over here to the tree, show the image when I do want to see it. Real quick, easy way to toggle that on and off. All right, so now that I've got that image in place, maybe this would be a good time to sketch the side view of this thing. So I'm just going to roll over to the side view here. I'm going to go right plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, and I'm going to sketch a couple of lines. So I'm going to sketch a line that runs down the entire length of this model. I could even maybe do a convert entities. I kind of bounce in between either doing convert entities or just piercing. So I'm going to do a pierce constraint here to give me the overall length based on that original overall sketch. And then I'm going to do a line going down the side here, a vertical line that I'm going to make for construction. And then I'm going to sketch a circle here, and that circle is going to have a, let's see here, diameter of, looks like about 16. So 16 for the diameter there, and I'm going to make that circle tangent to this rear line, and I'm going to make that circle tangent to this top line as well. And then I'm going to create another vertical line representing the thickness of this thing at the thinnest part at the bottom here, which looks like it has a thickness of about 5 millimeters. And I'm going to see if that seems to be pretty consistent up the entire length of the part. So looking up this side view here, it looks like it's pretty consistently at 5 millimeters. So I'm just going to draw a line here, type in the value 5, make a vertical line here like so, zoom in on that area and just do a quick trim entities. I'm using the drag trim, which is the default power trim. So I'm just dragging through there, and there we go. We got a pretty good side view of that thing. I'm going to exit that sketch, and I'm going to call that side layout. And now I'm going to go to the right plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, and I'm going to bring in tools, sketch picture, bring in that side view of the sketch picture. I'm going to drag this thing to kind of just start to get me close. So just drag it like so, and I'm going to say that that's going to be at 132. And then I'm going to move this guy over here. I'm going to flip the orientation, so flip horizontally. I'm going to get rid of the scale tool. I'm going to adjust the angle a little bit because it's not quite at the correct angle for my 2D sketch. Whoops, flipped it vertical by accident there. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. I think what might make this a little easier is if I go to the side layout here, right mouse button, and go to sketch color, and make that something that will pop out a little bit more. And I'll do the same thing with the top layout, right mouse button, sketch color. This is something I do pretty often just to make my sketches really pop out. And now I can get back into this sketch of the side view and really start to, get into positioning it. I'm doing a double click there on the image to reactivate it, reactivate it so the controls work. I got some shadowing on this thing, so I have to be a little bit careful about making sure that I don't pick up on the shadowing. Sometimes I'll actually drop the image into a post processor and do some contrasting on it just to make it a little bit easier to see, but I don't think that's going to be necessary in this spot. I think I can get this thing pretty close to what I'm expecting to see here. So let's see. I think that looks pretty good. I think I'm accounting for the perspective running down this thing. To be honest, it's not actually helping me out that much, so I don't know how much I'm going to actually end up using this particular image. This one seems like I may have, maybe I didn't get the best possible view here, but I'm still going to leave it in there. I've already come this far, trying to get it into place. It might help me to locate the foot position. Maybe I'll make this like 355.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, since I'm a little bit concerned about the quality of this image, I'm not going to worry about it too much more beyond that. I'm going to rename this here to image right. And then I'm going to save the model. So I'm going to hit save here, and I'm going to go to a directory I created. So in my working directory, I created this slide advancer directory. So it's right down here, slide advancer. And I'm going to go in here to the SolidWorks 2019 models, and I'm going to give all the files in this project a prefix, PPTA, so PowerPoint Advancer, dash, and then I'm going to call this one 001-10 key. So I'm going to make the whole 10 key as a multi-body design and just kind of bring it all together as a multi-body design. I'm going to go to the top plane again, begin a sketch, orient my view. Going to hide the top image here, and I'm going to go to tools, sketch picture. And I'm going to bring in this bottom image that I captured. So just a bottom image here. Again, maybe it needs a little bit of rotation. This should help me to make sure that I kind of capture where the battery door is and where those bottom feet are. So I think I'll be able to get some value out of this. Drag that resizer around. Going to turn that off so I can make some final kind of fine-tune adjustments here. Just drag this like so. And I think that's going to get me pretty close. I'm going to be measuring this stuff too, but I like having an image because the image helps me to make sure I don't miss anything, significant. Like if you don't have the image in there, you might be like, oh no, I forgot, I forgot that I have to access the battery compartment from the bottom, and maybe that would have you end up making a foolish mistake in the design where the 10 key can't come out, or you can't access the battery compartment for some reason. Or maybe you can make a wise decision later where you incorporate that element of the design into the design in a way that maybe you can kind of hook the entire 10 key onto the platform so it doesn't come off, but you incorporate a little window there so you can still get to the battery compartment. Maybe we'll end up doing something like that. At this point, we're still just brainstorming, so let's see how it goes. All right, so because these images, even though I sized them to the layout sketches, they're not actually dependent on the layout sketches. Like there's not a dynamic link between them. So because of that, I can put all these images up top, and that makes it really easy to hide all of them at once just by picking the top one, holding Shift, and selecting all of them, or hiding all of them at once. Top, right, bottom. Maybe I'll put the bottom as a second one because I think it's more likely I'll end up going back and using that one. Okay, so I think this thing's looking pretty good. I think based on the design, it makes sense for me to capture the information from the right view and just extrude that across, and then I'll kind of fill in this lower area here. This looks like it would probably be some type of a loft that would go from the almost very bottom of the model up here in kind of a with kind of a curvature on it. I don't think it's going to be too hard to capture that as a loft, so I think I'll start working on that part next. So I'm just going to go right plane, begin a sketch, orient my view. I can really just take this whole layout sketch that I captured here and do select chain to get the whole thing, and then I'm going to do, whoops, this one here, select chain to get the whole thing, and then I'm going to do a convert entities. So now that's what my right plane sketch looks like, and then all I need to do is just trim this part here away, and then I can do a features extrude. And since this model is symmetric, or at least it's symmetric for at least for the first part of the model, I'm just going to extrude it up to 1 point. Whenever I'm modeling and I'm working with what I anticipate to be symmetric geometry, I always just model it on the left side. Just my own personal preference is just to model on the left side. So that's how I'm going to model that thing into its position there. And then I'm going to just throw a fillet on here. There looks to be a fillet on the back side here. It's probably about 4 millimeters. Let me look at a preview and see what that looks like. Again, this might be where using the right side image would be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be that critical for the overall design. If it is, we can kind of double back at some later point and clean it up a little bit. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. Now I just need to measure where this loft is going to start from. So let's see here. It looks like the loft is going to start about, I'm going to say about 10 millimeters from the bottom. So I'm going to go to this bottom face here of the model. I don't think I need to see the top image anymore, so I'll hide that. I'll go from this bottom face of the model here. I'm going to press the S key on my keyboard, reference geometry plane, and I'm going to type in 10 millimeters there and flip the offset so it goes up to about there. So that's going to be where my first plane for the loft is, and then I'm just going to drag this up and have it terminate right here at this point, at the center of this information up here at the where that circular boss was. So this will be loft plane 1. So I'm just clicking in the tree here and then pressing F2, loft plane 2, and then I'm going to press Control S for save. So now my model's saved and I'm good to go. I'm going to keep moving on with this design. So now for this loft, it looks like the loft has, it ends up as almost full curvature, maybe not quite, but pretty close to full curvature once it gets up to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create this loft so that it's kind of embedded in the model a little bit. So it'll be, it'll become perfectly flush once it gets to that 10 millimeter offset plane. So I'll have it start here at this this corner that I had created from my earlier sketch. So I'll just create a line here that starts here at this corner. Maybe. Seems like I'm having trouble picking up on that point, so I'll just do it manually. Just create a coincident or a Pierce relationship there. When you're working with sketches that are on a perpendicular plane, that's not that uncommon that you'll need to do a Pierce relationship rather than a coincident. So I'm not that surprised. So I'm going to just drag this over here, and then when I'm looking at that sketch in a normal 2 view, I'm going to begin another line command and come back and just I'm in the line command. I'm not clicking anything, so you see I'm not touching my mouse right now. I'm going to come back and just hold my mouse over that endpoint and then get into tangent arc. That's a good quick shortcut that most people know about, but if you don't know about it, it's definitely one to remember. Really good shortcut to know about with regards to shortcutting from being in the line command to being in the arc command. So I'm going to close off that profile on this side. It's embedded in the model a little bit. I don't want it to be in too much, so I'm just going to make that maybe 1 millimeter embedded in. I'm going to say that the curvature on that side is going to run a duration of, let's see, we'll see what it is at the very top. So at the very top, it looks to be about 17 millimeters, maybe 15 millimeters at the very top. So at the bottom here, I'm just going to make it about 5 millimeters. Actually, I'll make it about, say, 3 millimeters, so we get some nice curvature there. And then the inset from the edge of the model is looks like it's about 3.5 millimeters. So I know it's kind of hard to see here, but this is what the transition is going to look like here. So I'll just create that dimension there, 3 millimeters in from the edge of the model. Okay, so that's going to be my first profile. And then my second profile is going to look very much like that first profile, so much so that I'm just going to take the first profile and press Control C, and then I'm going to, Control C, and then I'm going to click on this other loft plane here, and I'm going to press Control V, and you see that that pastes that profile down at that end. So all I need to do now is just reestablish any external references, which in this case is going to be the pierce point, or the coincident point to this point here. So I'll just make it coincident there. Okay, actually, sorry, wrong point. It's going to be this point here, coincident. All right, and now I'm going to take this distance here, which is the overall height of the loft at that location where it hits tangent, which at this end, it looks to be about 7 millimeters. So I'm gonna make it 8 since I'm sitting down in a bit. And then for this distance here, I'm gonna make this one here 15. And then I'm gonna just reestablish that distance dimension from the edge of the model. So from here to here, we said that that was going to be 3 millimeters, right? 3 millimeters from the very edge of the model. Yep. So 3 millimeters. So already there for 3 millimeters. And now I'm ready to perform that loft. So I'm going to. Oh, wait a second. Screwed this up a little bit. This shouldn't be coincident here. There should be a point. Let me click on that relationship and delete it. There should be a point here on this line, and that point should be 1 millimeter from the overlap. So 1 millimeter there. And then that point should be coincident here. Okay, there we go. That makes sense. So now when I go to perform that loft, I'm going to loft this geometry from this point to this point. So I'm picking the sketch right where I want the loft to connect. So it basically ends up being a nice straight line loft there. And when I hit the green check mark, you can see that that gives me that nice transition from the loft being perfectly flat to the loft ending up blending in up top here. It just kind of runs into the top. It doesn't run all the way up to tangent. There's like a filleted bump there, which let's see if I can kind of at least show that. There's a filleted bump there, but from this end, it's got this transitional area here. You can also see that when we look at the images of the 10 key. If we look at the backside image here, you can see that that transitional area. So it's this right here. So it starts out flush down at the bottom, and then it gets into that transitional area. Now, there's other things that I could do with that loft. Like if I was to edit the loft feature here, I could do something like have it begin with tangency to the profile, or normal to on that profile, so it actually comes out a little bit more smooth. But I don't really think it's necessary. I mean, I don't have a hard edge here. It's blending down to a single edge here, and then it's becoming curved. I think it's fine. So I'll leave it that way, but you could do it either way. It's not that important. Is what it really comes down to. But you can see here the transition right now has the curvature in it. Because of that option I just changed. But if I go here to edit feature, I could say I want it to have none, so it just starts at the bottom and goes straight up. Or I could say I want it to start out kind of perpendicular to this original sketch, or normal to this original sketch, and then blend up a little bit more nicely. Yeah, I think that might look a little bit more realistic, so I guess I'll leave it like that. Okay, so now that I've got that in place, there's a little bit of filleting that goes on along that edge. I'll stick with this kind of, 3-4 millimeter range here. Just kind of smooth that out as it gets up to the top there. And there's going to be a chamfer running around the entire outside of this thing. It looks like it's about a 1 millimeter chamfer. I don't think it's too much more than that. But I think I'm going to just save that to the very end. And the reason why I'm going to save that to the very end is because I want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the cuts that I'm going to make for the 10 key region. So I think I'm going to just save that for the very end, and instead I'm just going to focus on these little rubber stoppers here. So let's see here. So we've got a rubber stopper here, which looks to be a diameter of 10 millimeters. Nice and straightforward. It's 11 millimeters from that edge, and it is 13 millimeters from that lower edge. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to just pick this face here, begin a sketch, orient my view, and that geometry is going to be 10 millimeters in diameter, and it's going to be 11 millimeters from, or 13 millimeters from this edge, and it's going to be 11 millimeters from this edge. And then we'll see how far that sticks out. There's a kind of like a lip and then a dome. So the lip sticks out about 1 millimeter. So let's see if we can, features, extrude, 1 millimeter. See if that actually yields. Yep, it yields some geometry. Perfect. And then what we can do is we can click on that geometry and we can do an offset entities and just offset that by, say, 0.2 millimeters, reverse direction, hit the green check mark, and then we're going to go features, curve, split line, and we're going to split that face into two faces, and then we're going to pick that face there, and we're going to do what's called a dome command. Insert, features, dome, and we're just going to dome that out to probably not much more than like a millimeter or two. Looks like about 1.5 millimeter. All right, great. Now we've got a foot on the bottom. Okay, let's save this model. I always like to go through and rename my features as I'm going through. So this would be loft profile bottom. This will be loft profile, even though I know it's not really the bottom, it's more like the end and the other end. But top, this is gonna be I'll just call this loft blend fillet. This is going to be dome foot platform. This is going to be dome foot split or split dome foot, and then this is going to be dome foot. Foot. Okay, and so now we're ready to get the other foot there, because these feet, you know, they are going to be important, and I might be able to actually incorporate them into my design. So I think it's definitely worth taking a moment to get these feet to be correct. So this one is it's also going to be a dome, and it looks like it is at just about 1 millimeter off of the bottom of that 16 millimeter circle that we had created earlier. So I think that's going to be pretty straightforward, right? We'll just pick this face here, begin a sketch. We'll sketch a center point rectangle, or actually we'll do a slot here for this one. And we'll just go right on that edge where those two entities come together. This plane here kind of got in my way. Just move that up out of the way. Try that again. So we'll go here to this and this. Bring this out. Looks like this one is about... Let's see, how wide is that? Looks like it's about... I'm going to call it 5 millimeters wide. It's like 4.5 millimeters wide. And then the length of that from tangent to tangent is about 14 millimeters. So I'm going to hold shift here and pick this arc, and then pick this arc over here. And what that does is it dimensions tangent to tangent instead of dimensioning to the center point of the arc. You know, normally when you go arc to arc, you get center point to center point, but I wanted to go tangent to tangent. So I held shift while I was dimensioning. That's how you can do that. So again, here I'm going to pick this line, I'm going to hold shift, and then I'm going to pick this arc here, and so I get the dimension to the tangency point instead of the dimension to the center point. So that distance looks to be about 4 millimeters off of that edge. And then I'll just do extrusion, and in direction 1 I'll go say 0.25 millimeters, and then in direction 2 I'll go say 5 millimeters. Just want to go down into the model, and then I'll pick this face here, and I will actually, this one I'm not even going to split. I'm just going to do the dome right on this face. So insert features dome, and that's going to be 0.75, and there we go. There's also an elliptical dome. You see how this one ends up with kind of like a hard edge there? If I change that and I do the elliptical dome, I get a different result, which might actually be a little more realistic for these kind of rubber feet. Again, this stuff doesn't matter that much for our design, because we're using this stuff for location more than anything else. So, oh, of course I went completely the wrong way with that thing. So let me just fix that. So that actually should have been... Let's reverse direction here. This direction should be, let me think, how do I want to do this? I'm going to do this as 8.25. This is going to be not existent in direction 2, and then I'm going to make this offset. Instead of being at the existing sketch plane, I'm going to offset that 8 millimeters so that it starts out in the center here, and then it sticks out the bottom. There we go. Little mistake there along the way. All right, so this will be called slot foot, and this will be called slot foot dome, or dome slot foot. All right, cool. So I think that looks pretty good. The numbers are not symmetric, so I'm gonna mirror this thing now. So insert features mirror, and then this is gonna be my mirror face, and this is gonna be a. Oh, actually, let me get that fillet down at the bottom there. So here's where I might use the image to more easily capture what that fillet is at the bottom there. S key fillet, and then I could just kind of bump this up until it looks good, or eyeball it up until it looks good. That looks pretty good. 8 millimeters. That should totally be good. All right, so I'll hit the green check mark there, and then I can hide that.
All right, so I had some audio issues here, and I'm just going to overdub it. I was getting a lot of that noise interference, so the next thing that I'm going to do is go into the mirror command, and I'm going to choose the face to mirror about, and then I'm going to do a body mirror, which is essentially a mirror all command. So I'll just click on this body here that mirrors everything. I like to always go in and rename my features, so I'm going to call this mirror all, and then I'm going to rename some of the other features here, the lower corner. And I'm then going to press Control S for save. It's good, when you're already down there renaming features, it's good to jump right into Control S for save. So now I've got the basic foundation of this model created, and I'm now ready to go in and start adding the features that are going to represent the buttons. I think overall this thing's looking pretty good. Just kind of doing a quick inspection of the model, making sure everything looks good. And now I'm ready to start coming up with the plan to model the 10 key. So since the buttons on this 10 key are not symmetric, or they're not all perfectly evenly spaced, I'm going to go with what's called a sketch driven pattern. So I'm going to create a series of points that represent the center of each of the 10 key buttons, and then I'm going to place those points onto my model, and I'm going to use those points to dictate where each of the buttons for the 10 key is going to land. And I think that's going to be the best way to handle this, as opposed to just doing a straight linear pattern, because of the non-uniform spacing. Basically, you've got the group of buttons up top that are all spaced evenly, but these lower buttons are a little bit taller, so they're not spaced the same distance. And the very topmost buttons are much more narrow, and they're not going to be spaced evenly either. I might actually save those very topmost buttons for a later time, but I think that this is going to be a great way to get the basic location of the center of each of these buttons down. And you can see I'm using the image that we created earlier to help me at least get in the ballpark of where the center of each of these buttons should be. And then I'll go back and measure the model and make sure that I've got my measurements correct and that I've got an accurate representation of the 10 key model.
Like I missed this one here, so let me just move this over a little bit so it's lined up. So these should all more or less be lined up. So now I'm going to right mouse button in the background and say fully defined sketch. And I'm going to say I only want to look for relationships on this sketch. Just looking for relationships, calculate. And so what SolidWorks does for me here, or what it should do, is it should find that these are all vertical or horizontal to one another. Where is my vertical horizontal? It didn't seem to work, huh? Let's see, maybe if I do right mouse button, fully defined sketch, and I do this as just vertical and horizontal, maybe that'll work better. Calculate. How about just horizontal? Huh, doesn't seem to want to do it. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Well, all right, I was hoping that would be like kind of a tricked out way of doing it, but I guess I can just do this. Make all these horizontal, make all these horizontal, make all these horizontal, make all these horizontal, and make all of these horizontal. And then I can do the same thing for vertical. Whoops, what did I do there? I missed it. Okay. And then I can do the same thing for vertical. Make all these vertical, make all of these vertical, make all of these vertical, and make all of these vertical. Okay, not too bad. Now let's get a distance between these guys. So I think I'll just do a smart dimension here, ordinate dimension, and I'll just go ordinate from the bottom of the model to each of these points up along the side, and then I'll examine these, maybe make them equal. I guess there could be a different way of doing it. I guess I could just make them equal. It might be better actually to do it that way, right? So instead of doing that, maybe what I'll do is I'll do a center line. So a center line from here to here to here to here to here, and then I'll make all these center lines equal, and then I'll try to capture the distance from the bottom to this point here. So looks like the distance from the bottom to the bottom of that button is, I'm going to say 9 millimeters. No, 8 millimeters. And then the width of the button is, let's see here. The width of the button here is about 18 millimeters. So it should be 18, you know, it should be, if this is 5, this is more like 8. Yeah, so it should be about 17 millimeters to the center of that button. And then let's see, what's this one? This is also, oh, these are a little bit smaller. Okay, that's fair. So these ones are actually a little bit smaller than the other ones. So let's go, let's get rid of this equals relationship because that's not really accurate. So first of all, we're going to go here from the bottom. We're going to take the 8 millimeters plus the 9 millimeters, which is half of 18, which is the thickness, and we're going to make that 17. And then we're going to go to the center of that next button, which looks to me like it's going to be at about 37 millimeters to the center of that next one. So we'll go from here to here, 37. Not quite matching up with my image, huh? This is why we use the measurement and the image. Make sure we're not, you know, we're not overlooking anything. We're gonna definitely go with the measurement rather than the image. I think it's fair to say that's gonna be more accurate, but we may have to kind of come back and see if see where things went askew. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna see what the center to center distance is of a couple of these other buttons here. So it looks like it's gonna be about, I'm gonna say about 17 millimeters center to center for the rest of them. So let's see if we can make that happen. So we'll go here to here, and we'll make that 17. Actually wanted to get rid of these equals here, so right mouse button, driv in, and we'll make that 17. Okay, and let's just double check this first dimension one last time. Yeah, it looks to be about right. It's about 17 off the bottom as well. So 17 off the bottom, 17 center to center for the rest of those, and then this one's a little bit larger because it's you know, that lower button is wider. It looks pretty darn close, I gotta say, to you know, as far as my measurements go. So let's see. So the rest of these, oh, okay. So now we need to get our distance here off from the sidewall. So it looks like the distance from the sidewall to the center of that button is going to be about 15 millimeters. And then the distance from the sidewall to this next button here, in this case the 5 button, looks like it's about 34 millimeters. And then I can do the same thing here with the horizontal. I can make these equal. So this is going to be equal, equal, and equal over to here. So we'll go here, this, this, and this, and we're going to make those equal. All right, so that's going to give us the layout for, essentially for the lower buttons, and then we'll come up to and do these top buttons at the end, working off of that layout for the lower buttons. So we'll call this something like layout for lower buttons. And then again, I like to take sketches like that and go to sketch color and just make the sketch color something that really pops out. All right, so let's hide our image here of the top. And then let's start out with this button here. So this button here is going to be a rectangular sketch for the cutout of that button. And that looks to be about 15.5 by 15.5. So 15.5, 15.5. And this is going to be extruded. I'm not going to have the buttons press in. I don't think it's necessary for this model. We're really just trying to get locations here. So I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to make it like multi-body where the buttons push in or anything like that. So it looks like it's going to come up about 1 millimeter. And it's going to be filleted. So we can throw some fillets on this thing. So we'll go here to the, when you click the fillet command here in SolidWorks, if if you click on an edge, so let's say I'm just gonna make that 1 millimeter. If you click on an edge, like this edge here, and then you click on this first icon that shows up here, you'll get all 4 of the edges at one time. So that's another really nice time saver when you're working in the software. And now at this point, I think what I can do is I can pattern that to all the other locations where I anticipate using it. So I'm going to just do a sketch-driven pattern, and I'm going to say that my sketch is going to be this sketch of points here, and I'm going to say that my features to pattern are going to be this block and this fillet, so this block and this fillet. And I'm going to say that I want to utilize what's called a selected point. So that's going to be this point here as the reference point for that pattern. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I think that's looking pretty darn good. So now we've got these extra wildcard buttons over here. So for example, we've got the enter button over here, which I'm probably just going to bridge to clean it up. So I've got the enter button, which also looks to be 15 millimeters wide. Pretty straightforward there. I'll just pick this face here. I'm going to go to just a simple rectangle here, midpoint to midpoint. S key, extrude, double click this face, that takes me up to surface, and there we have bridged that for the enter key. And then for these keys at the bottom, I'm gonna start out by doing the same thing. So this face here, begin a sketch, and I'm gonna take this midpoint. See if I can wake up that midpoint. Maybe. There we go. Midpoint to midpoint, and S key, extrude. And then double click on this face down here. That's good. And then I'm going to just do a move face command. So insert face move. And I'm going to take this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I'm just going to take this arrow here and drag it down. You can see that I'm able to just move those faces. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can do this, but I like this method. I think this method works fine. So these are closer to, let's call this, I think it's fair to call this 18. So these are closer to 18, so it's going to be 1.5 additional in each direction. So the distance here in Z is going to be 1.5. And then I'm just going to repeat that command, insert face move, insert face move, and it's going to be this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are going to be moved in Z again. So you can guys see here what the preview looks like, and this is going to be -1.5. There we go. All right, so now if I pick on this face and this face down here, you can see that the distance there is 18.5. And if I, or 18.5, should just be 18, right? Did I misclick the one of these? 1.5. 1.5. Why is that coming out at 18.5? Are these? Did I make these 15.5? I must have, right? Yes, I did. 15.5. Okay, that explains it. Math works out. All right, so let's see here. So now distance from this face to this face is 7.75, and on the physical model, it's coming out at 7.75, almost exactly. And the distance between these two faces is, looks like about 3.5 on the physical model. And then let's see what it is here. So distance from here to here is 3. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to just go with this. I don't think we need to worry too much. Let's see what the calculation is from this face down to this face here. 95.75. So let's see what we got here. Just double checking these numbers here. And this is coming out at, looks like a little closer to 100. I'd say like 99.5. I think it's fair to say 99.5. So, and I'm coming up with 95.75. So, maybe I need just a little bit more spacing in between these numbers here, just to kind of even things out a little bit. So let me go back to this original sketch here, and I'm just going to make this 17.25. And I'm going to make this one 37.25. Just to kind of push those out a little bit. And then we got from here to here at, maybe we need just a little bit more. Let's make these 17.5 for each of those, and we'll make this 37.5. There's the button which I'm measuring, but then there's also a slight gap, you know, where the button exists in its pocket. So, you know, the numbers that I'm pushing around here, I think it's okay. 97.5. I'd like to get just a little bit closer. Let me just increase this spacing here just a smidge more. So we'll take this sketch here, make this 18. Okay, so now the distance from here to here is 2.5 millimeters, and on the physical model it is closer to 3, so I think we can actually push that out even further. Let's go 18.5. Okay, and then let's take a look at this. Okay, now we're at 100.75. So I think that's going to be close enough. I'd say we're within a millimeter of what the original is. And remember, this is important because this button here is going to be one of the buttons that gets pressed down. This button here is going to be one of the buttons that gets pressed down. So it's really important that we take the time to make sure that we've got those numbers correct. So let's see what our distance is to the 6th key there, to the top of the 6th key. So it looks like to the top of the 6th key from the bottom of the model is about 63 millimeters. So let's see what we're calculating it at here. 63.75. Perfect. And then we're going to take a look at the distance from the edge of the model to this edge of the 6th key. So from the edge of the model, 42.75 to the edge of the 6th key, and what we're coming up with here is almost exactly 42.75. And then to the edge of the 3 key from this side of the model, from the other side of the model, we're looking at about 23 millimeters to the edge of the 3 key. So from here to here, and we're looking at 22.75 when we look at the status bar. So I think we're good here. I think we're really good for these numbers. We do have the other numbers across the top that I just want to put in real quickly. So I'm going to go here, begin a sketch, orient my view, and just pick up some vertical relationships with a point command. So point here, 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 and make these all vertical. Vertical, 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 and vertical. And then I'm going to make all these horizontal to one another, and I'm going to just throw in a distance dimension here from this point to the center of our top keys there at, looks like it's going to be at about, let's say 15 on the nose. And then we're going to exit that sketch, and we're going to select that face, begin to sketch, orient the view, sketch a rectangle. This is going to have the same width as the other one, but I'm going to just type it in just because, you know, I'm pretty confident those numbers aren't going to change. So this is going to be at about 9 millimeters for the height, and then 15.5 for the width. And I'm going to extrude that, and I'll just go up to surface, just go up to the surface here. So it's got the same height. I'm going to do the same fillet value here. So this is going to be a fillet, if I pick these 4 corners here, of 1 millimeter. And okay, and then I'm going to do let me just change the color of this sketch here. This is the layout for our other geometry. So let's make this one like a slightly different green. And then I'm going to go in here to pattern, and I'm going to go sketch driven pattern. And when I go sketch driven pattern, I'm going to go here to this sketch. I'm going to pick these features, and I'm going to say that I want to use selected point, which will be this original point on the first one. A little hard to see. All right, looking pretty good, I think. So a couple of final features to rename. So this will be enter key bridge. This one will be 0 key bridge. This one will be enlarge 0 key lower. I'll just take that, Control C, click here, Control V, make this one upper. Go here to, this will be the I guess I'll call it layout for upper buttons. I'm going to go here to upper button 1. Oops. escape, I guess is what it would really be. Upper button fillets. And then this is upper button pattern. Okay, and I think that's just about it for this model. I could certainly incorporate things like the little indicator for the there's like a little indicator here. In fact, I'm just gonna just real quick sketch it in there just as a slot. I'm not gonna dimension it or anything. I'm just gonna kind of draw it in here just to remind myself, like, hey, don't forget there's something here. It's just a little indicator to say if the battery's on. It does tell you whether or not the number lock is on, so that is important, because if the number lock is on, the arrow keys won't work to advance the slides. That's the whole point of this thing. There's also this here, this 0 button lower, 0 key lower. It looks like I missed 3 faces here, so 1, 2, 3. These should also be extended down there. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then I just want to take a quick measurement of the, or just maybe a quick look here at the right side layout again, or actually I guess just take a look at the top layout. So 132 is the dimension that I'm using here. Let me just make sure that's correct. 132. That's what I'm getting for overall length. So I think we're good. I mean, it definitely looks on screen the way that it looks in the physical model. So I think I'm pretty happy with this thing. I'm going to save it. I'm going to, I guess what I'll do is I will add one final chamfer onto this thing. So chamfer that runs around the whole thing. So that should, let's see if I make this 1 millimeter, make sure that I get the, yeah, I'm going to use the distance chamfer, the newer chamfer added in 2018. Yeah, so that's pretty good. It looks like it might actually be like 0.5 in one direction. I don't think it really matters, but I'm a stickler for details. So let's reverse that. Yeah, it looks almost like it's more like that. A final chamfer running around the outside of this thing. Okay, and then of course we got our battery compartment on the bottom. Again, I might just quickly sketch something in there, but I'm gonna I don't know, maybe I should do that now. Again, I'm kind of a stickler here for this kind of stuff, so I'll go top plane, begin a sketch, and I'm gonna just take some quick measurements here. So looks like it's over about 20. It's about 23 millimeters from each side. So I'm just gonna come in here and go corner rectangle, drop in a corner rectangle right here, like so, and then that's gonna be 23 millimeters off of each side. So from here to here, 23 millimeters, from here to here, 23 millimeters, from here to here. This is going to be, call it 30 millimeters. And then I'm just going to go to curves, so features, curves, split line, and I'm just going to split this face and these faces here. And really this is just acting as like a reminder. Like, hey, here's the battery compartment. Don't forget about this. Sometimes I'll even go in and maybe assign a special color to that, so that I can, so that I'm just reminded, So maybe I'll go like a high gloss blue or a high gloss yellow here. Drag this onto this face right here, and say that's my battery compartment color. And then I could take that and I can say copy appearance, and then I can just pick these other faces here and I can say paste appearance, and then I just paste it right on there. So it's like, that's your battery compartment, don't forget. That's your indicator light, don't forget. Maybe even, like this is your 4 key here, so that's your reverse key, and this is your advanced key. These are important keys because that's what I'm going to be designing the whole thing around, so maybe I should highlight them a little bit. All right, I think that's going to do it. Let me just save this model, and we'll wrap things up. All right, so experiment complete. That's the process that I would go through. I know it took about 40 minutes going through and modeling that thing up, But I mean, this is what this channel is all about. This web series is all about kind of going inside the mind of somebody who's got a lot of experience with SolidWorks, and those are steps that I take to kind of make my way through this model. I was rushing a little bit. I felt myself rushing as I was going through it, but for the most part, I think I stuck to primarily best practices. And you know, I think I was able to capture the most important element of our design pretty darn accurately. So now in the next video, we're going to get into creating the layout for the overall assembly and kind of designing around this part as we're creating that layout, and figuring out how this thing's going to all fit together, and then we'll start creating some of the mechanisms for our wireless foot-powered slide advancer for PowerPoint. So let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments if you don't mind, if you like this format, if you're getting a lot out of it, if you have any suggestions on anything I can do better. I'm always interested, but I love to hear your comments, and I hope that you're enjoying the series so far and looking forward to getting into the next steps. All right, see you in the next one, everybody. Bye-bye.